There are days when people feel as though they are living inside an invisible maze. Everything continues as usual. The city lights still shine, conversations still go on, laughter still echoes among the crowd. But deep inside, there is a silent emptiness that no one can see, a feeling of being trapped within one's own mind. We chase success, yet lose our peace. We try to be loved, yet drift farther away from ourselves. And then, in the quietest nights, a silent question appears within the soul. Why do I still not feel free? Many people think freedom means having a lot of money. Others believe freedom is living exactly the way they want. But according to Buddhist wisdom, the deepest freedom does not lie in external circumstances. It does not come from possessing more, controlling more, or winning more. True freedom begins the moment the mind is no longer dragged around by fear, desire, and endless thoughts. It is when a person stops living like a leaf blown endlessly by the winds of emotion. It is when inner stillness remains even while life itself is full of chaos. Modern people have endless forms of entertainment, yet rarely truly rest. We can connect with thousands of people through a single phone, yet become increasingly disconnected from our own hearts. We fill every moment of silence with noise, news, videos, and endless conversations, only to avoid facing the emptiness within. But the more people run away from their inner world, the more exhausted they become, because what truly causes suffering is not that the world is too noisy, but that the mind has never truly been at peace. Buddhism does not teach people to run away from life, nor does it tell us to abandon everything and separate ourselves from the world. What the Buddha pointed out is that the root of suffering lies in attachment. We cling to things that are constantly changing. We cling to the feelings of others. We cling to the image of who we want to become. We cling to the past that is gone and the future that has not yet arrived. And then, when everything changes, the mind begins to panic, suffer, and fall into despair. Not because life is cruel, but because human beings try to hold on to things that were never meant to stay forever. Some people spend their entire lives trying to prove their worth. They work until exhaustion just to be recognized. They force themselves to appear strong even while breaking apart inside. They fear being left behind, forgotten, or not being enough. But the harder they try to become someone, the farther they move away from the natural peace that has always existed within them. Because inner freedom does not come when a person becomes perfect. It appears when a person stops fighting against themselves. Look at a lake early in the morning. When the water is disturbed, every reflection becomes distorted. But when the lake grows still, the sky appears with astonishing clarity. The human mind is the same. When dominated by anger, anxiety, and ambition, we no longer see life as it truly is. We only see the world through the fog of fear and lack. But when the mind gradually becomes quiet, a deep kind of freedom begins to emerge. Not freedom from life, but freedom from the chaos within. Strangely, most human suffering does not come from the present moment. It comes from thoughts about what has already happened or what has not yet happened. A single old sentence can haunt someone for years. A fear of the future can steal the peace of the present. The mind constantly pulls people away from this moment, and because of that, we spend very little time truly living in reality. We exist in memories, imagination, and worrying, but rarely in life itself. Buddhism calls this the ignorance of consciousness. People believe that if they can control everything, they will finally find peace. But life has never been within the control of any human being. Everything changes. Youth eventually grows old. Meetings eventually become farewells. Today's success may disappear tomorrow. When people resist impermanence, they suffer. But when they accept the flow of life, another door opens. It is the door to freedom. Inner freedom does not mean having no emotions. It is the ability to see emotions without drowning in them. It is when sadness arrives but does not destroy the soul. It is when loss happens, but the heart does not lose its inner light. It is when a person understands that everything comes and goes, just like clouds drifting across the sky. No emotion lasts forever. No suffering continues eternally. Yet the mind often clings to them, turning temporary moments into burdens carried for many years. Perhaps the most difficult journey in life is not conquering the world, but learning how to return to oneself. In a world that constantly pushes people to become faster, stronger, and better, sitting quietly in stillness has become something incredibly rare. Yet it is within that stillness that people begin to hear the true voice of the soul, not the voice of society, not the expectations of others, but a deep presence of peace and freedom that has existed within all along for a very long time. There is a truth that very few people dare to face. Most human beings are not truly living freely. They are merely living according to what the mind forces upon them. Some wake up every day with the anxiety of having to succeed faster than others. Some are trapped in the past, unable to forget a wound that happened many years ago. Some smile on the outside while inside they are exhausted from trying to please everyone. And gradually, life becomes an invisible cycle. Waking up, worrying, chasing, feeling disappointed, then continuing to chase something else with the hope that this time they will finally be happier. But the strange thing is that the more people try to grasp happiness, the emptier they feel. Because the mind always says, not enough, not successfully enough, not wealthy enough, not loved enough, not perfect enough. That very voice causes people to spend their entire lives in a state of lack, even when they already have so much. This is the invisible chain that Buddhism recognized thousands of years ago. Not chains made of iron and steel, but chains made of endless desire. A person may live in a large house while their mind remains full of anxiety. A person may be admired by many people yet still feel lonely when night falls. Because inner freedom has never depended on external circumstances. It depends on the ability to let go of dependence on external things in order to feel worthy. When a person's happiness depends entirely on others, they will always live in fear. Fear of being abandoned, fear of being judged, fear of losing the things they cherish. And where fear exists, true freedom cannot exist. The Buddha once pointed out that an untrained mind is like a monkey constantly jumping from one branch to another. It never stays still. While eating, the mind thinks about work. While resting, the mind worries about the future. While being beside one person, the mind remembers someone else. Human beings rarely live fully in the present moment, and because of that, they miss the simplest things in life. A peaceful morning, a deep breath, a gentle breeze passing by, a moment when the heart feels truly peaceful without needing any reason at all. Perhaps the greatest suffering of human beings is always searching for something far away or what they truly need already exists within them. They travel everywhere searching for the meaning of life, yet have never sat still long enough to listen to themselves. They try to fill their souls with busyness because they are afraid of facing the emptiness inside. But that emptiness is not something to fear. Sometimes emptiness itself is the very first door leading people toward freedom, because only when all the noise settles down do we realize how exhausted we have become from trying to be someone. Buddhism does not teach people to hate the world. The essential lesson is learning how to exist within life without being swept away by it, like a lotus growing from mud without being polluted by the mud itself. Human beings can still live among chaos, competition, and constant change while maintaining inner stillness. That is true strength, not the strength to control others, but the strength not to lose oneself. Some people spend their entire lives defeating others to never once overcome their own anger. Some are highly intelligent, yet cannot escape the negative thoughts that constantly torment their minds. Some achieve everything they once dreamed of, yet in the end still feel life is meaningless. This happens because the external world may provide comfort, but it cannot bring liberation to the inner self. Only when people learn to observe their own minds, understand their deepest fears, and stop running away from them does true freedom begin to appear. One of the deepest teachings of Buddhism is that everything is impermanent. At first, this may sound sad, but in reality it is the doorway to peace, because when people understand that everything changes, they stop trying to hold on to things that were never meant to last forever. They will love more deeply without becoming possessive. They will live more fully without falling into despair when something is lost. They will learn to treasure every small moment of life because they understand that nothing lasts eternally. And eventually there comes a moment when people begin to realize that freedom is not about becoming someone else. Freedom is returning to oneself without shame, without constantly struggling to prove anything to the world. It is when the mind is no longer dragged around by competition and the noise of society. It is when a person can sit alone in silence and still feel complete, without needing recognition, without chasing the crowd, without needing to become perfect, because in the end the greatest peace in human life does not lie in having everything. It lies in the moment when a person is no longer chained by anything at all. And then one day you will realize that life itself was never truly imprisoning you. What kept human beings trapped for so many years was not circumstance, not other people, but the invisible chains within the mind. They are the fear of falling behind, the regret of the past, the endless craving for recognition, the repetitive thoughts that slowly exhaust the soul. And the most painful part is that many people become so accustomed to living inside this prison that they forget what true freedom even feels like. But Buddhism always reminds us that the light has never disappeared. It has only been covered by the endless noise of the mind. Just as the sky never vanishes behind dark clouds, deep peace has always existed within every human being. We have simply wandered too far away from ourselves, too busy to listen to the heart, too exhausted to sit still, too accustomed to chasing the external world that we forget the place we most need to return to is our inner self. Some people spend their entire lives searching for happiness in the future. They believe that if they can achieve just one more thing, they will finally feel complete. But even after achieving it, the emptiness still remains, because true happiness does not appear when people possess everything. It appears in the moment when a person is no longer dependent on anything in order to feel peaceful. It is a very quiet kind of freedom, not dramatic, not loud, yet deeper than any victory the outside world could offer. When a person stops trying to control everything, they begin to breathe more lightly. When they stop trying to become a perfect image in the eyes of others, their heart gradually begins to rest. When they stop carrying old wounds as part of their identity, their soul slowly begins to heal. And then they understand that healing is not about erasing all suffering. Healing is learning how to live peacefully even while life still contains stormy days. Life will always change. People will come and go. The things that seem so important today may one day become only faded memories. But there is one thing that grows stronger the quieter it becomes, a soul that is no longer dragged around by the world. Such a person no longer needs to run endlessly to prove their worth. They no longer live to compete with others. They begin to live more deeply, more slowly, and more truthfully. And it is in that very moment that they touch the rarest form of wealth in existence, inner freedom. Perhaps that journey does not happen overnight. The human mind has been conditioned to worrying for many years, so it cannot become silent immediately. But every small moment of awareness matters. Every time you choose to let go instead of holding tighter. Every time you remain silent instead of reacting in anger. Every time you return to your breath amidst the chaos of life, the soul moves one step closer to freedom. And perhaps in the end, the deepest meaning of life is not trying to become someone great in the eyes of the world. It is learning how to live without the heart feeling heavy. It is moving through this life with a soul as light as the clouds in the sky, without resentment toward the past, without fear of the future, without losing yourself in the endless current of life, because the greatest freedom a human being can ever find is not somewhere out there. It begins in the moment when the mind finally learns to let go.